So today we're going to look at Prezi, that's P-R-E-Z-I, which is an online tool for creating visual presentations. And we're also going to look at how Prezi functions within the UDL framework. As you can see, I have a Prezi open on my screen about world geography. What's great about Prezi is that they have so many amazing templates like these available to use, where all you have to do is customize the presentation with your content and information. I started this World Geography Prezi about top exports from different countries or regions around the world, and we're going to look at the UDL guidelines as we continue to work on it and use the features of Prezi. So the first principle is provide multiple means of representation. This is one of the principles where Prezi really shines. The first guideline under this principle is provide options for perception. This means that we should present information to students using different modalities that are adjustable by the user so that information is accessible to all students. Let's look at this in action. We'll start by looking at the first slide I've created about Canada. Here you can see I have the text Canada with images of its top exports. I can adjust the size of the text and the image as well. So here, all I have to do to adjust the size of the text is to click Edit the Text and click on this button here. See, I can make it much larger. I can also adjust the size of the pictures. This allows me to adjust the content to fit the learning needs of my students. So say they need much larger visuals, or I can also zoom in and zoom out of my slide if they need more context. So that we can really scaffold and help them learn the material. We can also offer many different modalities that are auditory or visual for students using Prezi. Here I'll draw your attention to the Insert button at the top here. As you can see, it says Insert Images, Videos, etc. If I click on it, I can see that I can add all sorts of auditory and visual elements to my slides. For example, I can add background music right here, my auditory modality, or I can add some visual modalities as well. So let's move over to my next slide. That one's going to be about the United States. Here it is. We can look at how we embed different visual modalities into this slide. I'm going to go back up here to my Insert menu. I can insert an image by using the Bing image tool provided by Prezi. And here it is. So say I wanted to embed a picture of a technology because I know that the United States, one of their biggest imports is technology. All I have to do is drag and drop. I search on Bing and then I just drag and drop a picture and it appears on my Prezi. That's a really great way to add a graphic, a visual, but we can also use different types of visual modalities too. Like here, if I go back to Insert, I can actually insert a YouTube video just by pasting the link. And here I have already pulled up a video of a Toyota factory in Mississippi, where I can copy the link, come over here, and insert it into my slide. Then it's ready to go. I can just click and play it here on my slide, which is really great. And it provides that extra opportunity for students to engage in the material in different ways. So our second guideline is to provide options for language, mathematical expressions, and symbols. A lot of the clarification of vocabulary and symbols for this guideline can be presented orally by the speaker. And we can do that outside of Prezi. That's not, exactly a Prezi specific thing. But if we zoom out to our overview, we can look back at the Insert button here. And now, if we look all the way down, we can see that we can add a voiceover to our transitions. This can, let's see. I can put the voiceover into my arrow transition. So as you can see here, my transitions are arrows. We'll zoom in. And it can help us explain to students what the arrows mean, what this symbol means. And here it's obviously our trait roots for our exports. So I can actually, using Prezi, embed this clarification of the symbol into the presentation itself. I can also insert a graph or a chart that I can walk through with my students so that they can understand the mathematical representation. So if I go to my next area right here, it's Northern Africa, and I can type that in. Best slide. Okay. I've pulled up over here information about the percentage of share that each export has in the Middle East and North Africa. And what I can do is I can insert, I go down here, it says it's a new feature, it's a cool feature. I can insert a chart. And if I want to use percentages, I can talk to my students about why I used a pie chart. Here we have one here. And what I can do is I just insert the data. So here I would use these percentages to insert. And then I can put the chart into my slide. Here it is. My third guideline is provide options for comprehension. For this guideline, we want to activate prior knowledge, which we can do by providing the world map. Here it is. We can have students see how what they know about geographic locations and features might play into the exports from each country or region. We want to highlight big patterns, ideas, and relationships, which we can do through our transitions of moving to the next export over a trade route to the next geographic location. We also want to promote transfer, which this framework of presenting ideas in context on the world map would support. The second principle is provide multiple means of action and expression. The first guideline is provide options for physical action. This is a presentation tool. So most of the power for action is in the hands of the presenter. Since Prezi is online though, students can access the Prezi on their own computers and click through the slides online. The next guideline is provide options for expression and communication. Again, this is a presentation, so you as a teacher would have to provide the students with external methods of doing this, since they would not be able to alter the presentation or add to it when you are watching it. The next guideline is provide options for executive functions, which would guide students towards goal setting, planning, and strategy development, managing information and resources, and monitoring their own progress. A lot of this would have to be done outside the Prezi unless you wanted to model how to use charts or graphic organizers that you could insert into the slides, like we did previously, to scaffold student learning of these processes. You could also make a Prezi about one of these goals. The third principle is provide multiple means of engagement. The first guideline is provide options for recruiting interest. To do this, you want to optimize individual choice and autonomy, optimize relevance, value, and authenticity, and minimize threats and distractions. As far as individual choice and autonomy goes, students wouldn't have much choice over how a Prezi they were watching was created. However, if students were to create their own Prezi, they could customize the design, layout, colors, information, and every component of the Prezi to stay engaged. I think one of the drawbacks to this, though, is that there are so many templates and ways to add media or customize that students could easily get distracted by creating their own Prezi. The next guideline is providing options for sustaining effort and persistence. We could do this by allowing groups to create a Prezi to foster collaboration and communication, or by increasing mastery-oriented feedback on student-created Prezis to encourage perseverance, self-efficacy, improvement, and other skills. The next guideline is provide options for self-regulation. Again, if we were to have students create their own Prezis, we would give them guides, rubrics, or checklists that have them working towards expectations, as well as providing support if they get frustrated using the tool. We could also have them self-assess and reflect on their product. You could use Prezi to make a social studies presentation, like I did, to emphasize location and movements of people and things around the world. As you can see here, there are so many different templates to choose from when we're looking at starting a new Prezi. I thought that this road ahead, or maybe a key to success, one of the map kind of like logical steps templates, could work well for a language arts lesson to show the steps in revising or drafting a paper. But really, any sort of process that requires steps would be very easy to create using a Prezi and using one of these like this roadmap where it shows you how to move through different steps. You could also, like I mentioned before, have students create their own Prezi as a summative assessment. This could show you, by having students use Prezis, that they not only understand the content and the information, but they understand relationships between information, since Prezis really foster creating tools and presentations that show you how things are linked together and the big picture relationships. So that is my screencast about how to use Prezi to create a presentation that follows the UDL guidelines.